this is an MD, and she says, why you still feel terrible with, in inverted commas, normal vitamin D levels. 7 doctors missed this. So this might find the answer to what I was just talking about there, like what's going on with the doctors. And certainly what those 2 videos that we've just watched have asked, like what's going on with the doctors. So yeah, I think we'll watch this video.
Have you ever had all the symptoms of vitamin D deficiency? Fatigue, brain fog, muscle weakness, depression, but your blood tests came back normal? Or perhaps you're taking supplements, getting plenty of sun, and doing everything right, but still feeling awful. I'm Dr. Hilary Lynn, and after treating thousands of patients from Stanford to my private practice in longevity medicine, I've discovered something that's transformed how I think about vitamin D. The way we test for and treat vitamin D deficiency is fundamentally flawed. Let me share a story about a patient I'll call Rachel. Rachel came to my office after a 2-year journey that maybe sounds like yours. She had seen 7 different doctors for crushing fatigue and muscle weakness, so severe she actually had trouble climbing all the stairs to her home. Every doctor ran the same standard vitamin D test and told her that she had normal levels at 31 nanograms per milliliter. Every doctor said there was nothing wrong. Here's something that fascinated me about Rachel's case. All of her other labs were fine, and her symptoms were screaming classic vitamin D deficiency, and she seemed to be doing a lot of the right things, taking supplements, getting sun, and eating well. And it wasn't until we dug deeper that we discovered why these interventions didn't seem to be working. 3 months after implementing what I'm about to share with you, Rachel was back to living a normal life. And it wasn't just about taking more vitamin D supplements. Here's one crucial insight to start with. That standard vitamin D test your doctor runs, it's like trying to judge how well your car runs by measuring how much fuel is in the entire system, including what's trapped in the fuel lines and can't reach the engine. You see, when we measure total vitamin D, we're looking at everything your body has stored away, but over 99% of that vitamin D is bound to proteins in your blood and isn't available immediately for your cells to use. That's just the beginning of what we're getting wrong about vitamin D in medicine. What I'm about to share will challenge everything you think you know about this crucial hormone. And yes, it's a hormone, not just a vitamin. This includes why even people living in sunny places are often functionally deficient, the missing ingredient that makes most vitamin D supplements ineffective, and how the timing of your vitamin D could matter more than a dose, and the surprising connection between vitamin D and your other hormones that explains why normal levels aren't enough. In today's episode, I'll break down the 5 different forms of vitamin D in your body and why sometimes your doctor might be measuring the wrong one, missing ingredients for your vitamin D metabolism, and 3 simple steps you can take today to optimize your vitamin D status, even if your levels are so-called normal. Let's start by looking at what your doctor might be missing when they're interpreting your vitamin D test results, because what I discovered about these numbers changed everything about how I practice medicine. Let me share something that shocked me during my research. When your doctor orders a vitamin D test, they're only looking at one of 5 different forms of vitamin D in your body. And here's the kicker. It might not even be the most important one. So let's talk about these 5 forms. First, we have vitamin D3 or cholecalciferol. This is what your skin makes from sunlight, and it's what's in most supplements, but it's basically inactive. Your body needs to transform it into an active form. We also have vitamin D2, which is ergocalciferol. This is the plant-based form found in some fortified foods and prescription supplements. We don't see this as much anymore because we've figured out that this isn't the more effective version of a supplement to take. And some people don't convert this form efficiently, which is why supplements don't include D2 very much anymore. Then we have 25-hydroxyvitamin D. This is what almost every doctor tests for. This is called your storage form of vitamin D. And then we have 1,25-dihydroxyvitamin D. This is the active form, what your cells actually use. Surprisingly, most doctors never test for this. And then I'll just mention 24,25-dihydroxyvitamin D. This is a breakdown product, which can tell us how quickly your body is using up its vitamin D. Now, most doctors will tell you that a level between 30 to 100 nanograms per milliliters is normal. But After treating thousands of patients, I've discovered something fascinating. This range isn't telling us the whole story, and it might not even be right for you. First, let's talk about what optimal really means. While 30 nanograms per milliliters might prevent a drastic condition like rickets, I've found that many of my patients dealing with fatigue and immune issues don't actually start feeling better until they reach at least 50 nanograms per milliliters. Both in my clinical experience and supported by current research, the sweet spot is typically between 50 to 80 nanograms per milliliters. But this is where it gets interesting. Some patients need even higher levels, while other people feel great at 45 or even lower nanograms per milliliter. There's a bigger problem with how we test vitamin D, and it's something I wished every doctor understood. So think about vitamin D like money that needs to reach different branches of your bank, which are your cells or your organs that need the vitamin D to function well. The standard test just counts the total amount of money in the system. But here's the critical part. Almost all of this money is being held by security guards, known as vitamin D binding proteins, whose job it is to protect and transport the vitamin D. These security guards are essential. They keep your vitamin D safe and carry it through your bloodstream, but sometimes they hold onto it too tightly. So imagine having plenty of money in your account, but the security guards are so strict that you could only withdraw a tiny amount at a time. That's exactly what can happen in your body. So you might have a normal vitamin D level of 35, but if your binding proteins are holding on too tightly, your cells are still standing there unable to access what they need. And it gets even more complex. Before any of this vitamin D becomes usable, your body needs to process it through your liver and kidneys, like converting foreign currency into local money your cells can actually use. The standard test doesn't tell us anything about how well your body is managing these conversions. And what's even more concerning is how wildly different labs interpret these numbers. I've actually seen the same number get called deficient versus optimal. So one lab might say that you're deficient at 29, while another would call that same level sufficient. So in Rachel's case, she had a quote unquote normal level of 31, but still had all the classic symptoms of deficiency. We dug a lot deeper and we discovered that her hormone levels were affecting her vitamin D metabolism, and likely her binding proteins were holding on to her vitamin D so tightly that her cells couldn't access it. So this is why for people who are struggling with persistent symptoms despite normal levels, we need to look beyond that basic 25-hydroxy vitamin D test. A complete assessment might include that standard 25-hydroxy test, that total amount of vitamin D, also your vitamin D binding protein levels, or how many security guards you have, free vitamin D calculation, which is how much is available to your cells, and the 125 dihydroxy vitamin D levels, or how much active form you're making, as well as key cofactors, which I'll discuss, which will affect how your body processes vitamin D. But let me be clear, most people don't need such an extensive workup. If your levels are really good, over 50, for example, and you're feeling well, the standard test might be all you need. However, for those who are dealing with autoimmune conditions, chronic fatigue, or haven't responded to standard supplementation, this deeper investigation could be revealing and really helpful. So this brings me to something fascinating about how your body processes vitamin D. A discovery that explains why some people with optimal levels of vitamin D still feel terrible, while others with supposedly low levels feel completely fine. Here's something that might surprise you. Vitamin D isn't just a vitamin. It's actually a hormone itself. And what I'm about to share about its role in your body's hormone network will transform how you think about your unexplained symptoms, from brain fog to fatigue to mood changes. Let's start with what I consider to be the most fascinating discovery in recent vitamin D research: its profound impact on your brain and stress response. When you're chronically stressed, your elevated cortisol, or stress hormone levels, trigger an enzyme that breaks down active vitamin D faster than usual. But here's the interesting part. Vitamin D actually fights back against the effects of chronic stress in ways that we never knew about till recently. So the science here is extraordinary. Studies have shown that vitamin D acts as a powerful protector for your brain, particularly in regions crucial for mood, memory, and stress resilience. It's like having a skilled maintenance team that not only repairs stress damage, but actually fortifies your brain against future attacks. It does this by reducing inflammation, boosting your natural antioxidant defenses, and most incredibly, helping produce special compounds called neurotropic factors that act like premium fertilizer for your brain cells. Even more fascinating, vitamin D helps normalize your body's stress response system. This is the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. When this system gets stuck in overdrive, which happens all too often in our modern world, vitamin D helps bring it back into balance. I've seen this play out in countless times in my clinic. Patients who thought that they were just stressed discover that optimizing their vitamin D levels transforms their resilience and their mental clarity. Now let's talk about another crucial hormone relationship that's often overlooked. There's this intricate dance between vitamin D and your thyroid. This connection is so profound that it's really revolutionizing how we think about both thyroid disorder and unexplained fatigue. A groundbreaking Mendelian randomization study recently suggested that optimizing your vitamin D levels might actually help protect your thyroid function. Think of vitamin D as a conductor, helping your thyroid hormones better communicate with every cell in your body. But what's really interesting is that even in people with normal thyroid numbers, low vitamin D can impair how well your cells respond to thyroid hormones. It's like having a perfectly good mobile phone, but a weak signal. That message just isn't getting through clearly. So this explains why some people with normal thyroid tests still have all the symptoms of a sluggish thyroid. Then we have this third key hormone connection, and one that explains so many mysterious symptoms between vitamin D and your sex hormones. The science here has revealed something remarkable. Vitamin D receptors and metabolizing enzymes are present throughout your reproductive tissues, creating this two-way conversation that affects everything from energy to mood to metabolic health. In men, this connection shows up clearly in testosterone levels. Research has shown that vitamin D deficiency correlates with lower testosterone production, and supplementation can help boost levels naturally. For women, the relationship is even more complex. Vitamin D plays a crucial role in estrogen biosynthesis, affecting how your body produces and responds to estrogen throughout your cycle. This becomes particularly critical during hormonal transitions like menopause. Studies have shown that postmenopausal women are at significantly higher risk of vitamin D deficiency, even with adequate sun exposure. And it's not just about absorption, it's about how your body's entire endocrine system adapts to these hormonal shifts. So this explains why so many women, like Rachel actually in my original case, find their vitamin D needs to change dramatically during this transition. So what does this intricate hormone web mean for you? It means that treating vitamin D deficiency isn't just about popping supplements or getting more sun. It's about understanding and working with your body's entire hormonal ecosystem. So let's revisit the 3 game-changing insights that came from all of this research. First, remember, your stress response and vitamin D levels are locked in this bidirectional relationship that can either support or undermine your brain health and resilience. So by optimizing both, you can create this upward spiral of better stress tolerance and clearer thinking. Second, we have the vitamin D thyroid connection, meaning that optimizing your vitamin D status could be that missing link in resolving unexplained fatigue and metabolic issues, even if your thyroid numbers look normal. And third, understanding how vitamin D interacts with your sex hormones is crucial for navigating hormonal transitions and optimizing your energy, mood, and overall vitality at every stage of life. But here's the most exciting thing. Once you start understanding these connections, you can start working with your body's natural hormonal rhythms instead of against them. Now, I'm going to talk about a revolutionary discovery about timing. How when you get your vitamin D might be just as important as how much you're getting. When I tell people that the time of the day they take their vitamin D might matter more than the dose, I often get a lot of surprise. It's almost like your supplements have jet lag. So this insight emerged from fascinating recent research, and it's transformed the way I approach vitamin D optimization for myself and my patients. And once you understand the science behind it, you'll never look at your morning routine the same way. So here's what we've discovered. Your body's response to vitamin D isn't static. It's actually following a precise daily rhythm that's almost like an orchestrated dance between your hormones, genes, and metabolism. And just like showing up to a dance class at a wrong time might leave you doing a waltz during hip hop hour, taking vitamin D at the wrong time might mean that you're not getting its full benefits. The science here is absolutely fascinating. So studies have shown that your body processes vitamin D differently depending on when you take it. In fact, researchers have found that giving vitamin D at certain times of the day results in better bone density improvements and fewer side effects like calcium issues compared to the exact same dose given at other times. It's like your body has specific office hours when it's best equipped to process and use vitamin D. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Your active vitamin D levels follow a daily rhythm, peaking during the day and reaching their lowest point in that early dawn morning. When researchers discovered this pattern, it completely changed how we think about vitamin D supplementation. Imagine trying to deposit a check when the bank is closed. That's essentially what we're doing when we ignore these natural rhythms. I sometimes notice this pattern with folks who are night shift workers. A lot of night shift workers will take the same supplements as everybody else, people who work a regular day shift. But night shift workers consistently struggle more with symptoms such as from vitamin D deficiency. And it's not just about a lack of sun exposure. The entire vitamin D processing system goes out of sync. To dive a bit more into the science, vitamin D helps synchronize important genes like BMAL1 and PER2. These are your body's internal timekeeper genes. So when these genes are properly synchronized, they help regulate everything from your metabolism to your energy levels throughout the day. It's like vitamin D isn't just a regular nutrient. It's one of your body's primary timekeeping signals. So just to repeat it, because that was a lot of info, you can access vitamin D supplements better if you take it at certain types of the day, typically in the morning, or at night if you are a night shift worker. But also having sufficient amounts of vitamin D helps you keep better time with your circadian rhythm. Now let's talk about another crucial aspect that many doctors and people miss: the seasonal aspect of vitamin D timing. You see, your body's vitamin D machinery doesn't just follow a daily rhythm, it follows an annual one too. This isn't just about less sun exposure in the winter. Your body actually processes vitamin D differently depending on the season. So I've found that even patients getting the same amount of sun exposure through different means show distinct seasonal patterns in how their bodies process vitamin D. It's like your body has a built-in calendar that's as important as a daily clock. So for example, let's take one particular case, Claire. This was a software engineer who I was working with who worked from home a lot. And so she was taking vitamin D as a supplement, 5,000 IUs, which is the typical max dose that I recommend for many people. However, the problem was she was getting her good enough sun exposure by walking her dog in the late afternoon. And despite her labs showing decent vitamin D levels, she was still struggling with winter fatigue. So we tried a few different things, including shifting her schedule to include morning light exposure and adjusting her supplement timing seasonally. Her energy transformed within a month. Her vitamin D levels actually didn't change on her blood test, but her body's ability to use that vitamin D improved dramatically. So why is this timing effect so powerful? When you give your body the right signal at the right time, you're not just providing raw materials, you're speaking your body's native language. It's like an orchestra. Properly timed vitamin D exposure is like a conductor raising their baton at the start of the performance. But that orchestra also needs to play different music for different seasons, and the conductor needs to adapt accordingly. So what does this mean practically for you? One, daily timing matters. Morning light exposure isn't just about getting vitamin D, it's about setting your body's master clock. For supplements, research suggests taking them with your largest meal of the day to optimize absorption, but also early in the day because that's when the timing works with your circadian rhythm. For people taking a lot of different medications, you might want to time your vitamin D away from them for proper absorption. There can be some competition, although for a lot of people, this extra factor might not matter so much. If you want to be really optimal though, this can be an extra optimal step to take. And second, seasonal adaptation is key. So your vitamin D needs typically increase by 50% or more during winter months. Morning light exposure becomes even more crucial during shorter days, and the timing of your supplements might need to shift with the seasons. And if you're somebody with a specific schedule, for example, if you work in the office and you don't get any morning sun access, use your lunch break for some outdoor exposure and consider a light therapy lamp for morning signal. I actually use a little light bulb to help me get up in the morning because I don't get a lot of sun in the northern hemisphere. And unfortunately, I don't really get outside early in the morning like I wish I could. I also recommend, like we mentioned before, timing your supplements with your first substantial meal, particularly for supplements like vitamin D, which are absorbed better with food. And if you're a night shift worker, you might want to create a modified morning routine when you wake. So use strategic light exposure to help reset your rhythm and adjust your supplement timing, including your vitamin D, to your active hours. And for those seasonal transitions, you want to start adapting your routine 2 to 3 weeks before the season changes if you want to go for that optimal shift. And gradually shifting your timing with the changing sunrise will help your body adopt better. You may also need to adjust your doses up and down depending on seasonal patterns. Remember, in the winter months, you tend to need more supplementation of vitamin D. But what if you're doing everything right with timing and still not feeling optimal? This is where understanding the crucial role of certain cofactors becomes vital. So most of us have probably heard of the importance of vitamin K2 in adjunct with vitamin D supplementation. K2 acts like your body's traffic director and ensures that the calcium you absorb thanks to vitamin D actually goes where it's supposed to, into your bones and teeth and not your arteries and soft tissues. And yes, K2 is absolutely crucial for most of us. Without it, increasing your vitamin D could theoretically do a bit more harm than good, like hiring more delivery trucks without giving the proper GPS systems. They might end up dropping off their packages at all the wrong addresses. As a small extreme example, I actually once had a patient who was really overdoing her vitamin D supplementation, and she was also taking some calcium. So it is a kind of special case, but she ended up in the cardiac ICU because she had so much calcium in her blood levels that it was leading to heart block, which, like it sounds, is a life-threatening heart condition. Thankfully, she ended up okay, but we had to do some education about her supplementation. But what's fascinating to me is that while most people know about K2, most of us are missing an even more fundamental piece of the puzzle, something so essential that without it, your body can't properly use vitamin D at all. I'm talking about magnesium. And what I'm about to share about this mineral will transform how you think about vitamin D optimization. What shocked me as I was doing research about vitamin D is that every single enzyme involved in vitamin D metabolism is magnesium dependent. This isn't just a helpful nutrient, it's absolutely essential for your body to do anything with the vitamin D you're taking. So think about that for a moment. You could be doing everything else right, taking vitamin D with K2, getting sun exposure at the right times, optimizing your hormone levels. But if you're deficient in magnesium, it's like having a perfectly good car with no oil in the engine. It simply can't function properly. And here's the problem that I see in my practice almost every day. The standard way we test for magnesium is basically useless. So when your doctor runs a standard magnesium test, they're only looking at the magnesium in your serum, free for the lab test to detect. Here's the catch. Less than 1% of your body's magnesium is detected by such tests. The rest is hidden inside your cells, where all the important work happens. So you might be taking extra large doses of vitamin D, even up to 10,000 IUs, which I don't typically recommend for most people. And you might not see levels budging for your vitamin D levels, or your symptoms might not be going away. If you're one of these people, you might want to double check your red blood cell magnesium levels. RBC magnesium level is your storage magnesium level, and that might be helpful in detecting whether you're deficient in magnesium. By making sure that you're not deficient in magnesium, you might actually require a much lower dose of vitamin D supplementation. Recent research has shown that magnesium doesn't just help activate vitamin D, it also helps regulate how much gets activated. So it's like having a skilled financial advisor who knows exactly when to invest your money and when to save it. Without adequate magnesium, your body might actually convert too much vitamin D into its active form too quickly, and that can also cause problems. I've observed this several times in my own practice. Patients with low magnesium often have signs of vitamin D deficiency, even if their blood levels of vitamin D are normal, while others develop symptoms of vitamin D excess on relatively normal doses. Their bodies have lost the ability to properly regulate vitamin D activation. So as you can imagine, magnesium is involved in all of those different pathways that vitamin D is involved with. First, we've got the hormonal effects. Magnesium helps regulate the enzymes that activate and deactivate vitamin D, and it's crucial for vitamin D receptor function, and it helps maintain the delicate balance of calcium regulation. And as you might imagine, magnesium is also important for the timing impacts. Magnesium is essential for the proper circadian rhythm function, and it helps regulate the enzymes that control daily vitamin D cycling. Low magnesium levels can disrupt your body's natural timing systems. And then we've got cellular response effects. Without adequate magnesium, your cells can't properly respond to vitamin D signals. So this explains why some people need extremely high doses to see any benefit. Correcting magnesium often allows for lower, safer vitamin D doses. So I recommend checking magnesium before you escalate your vitamin D doses higher and higher. If you're not able to get proper testing done, here are some key signs that your magnesium status might be affecting your vitamin D function. One is perhaps your vitamin D levels aren't increasing despite supplementation, or you might be getting side effects of vitamin D excess. It's disrupting your sleep, or your mood actually paradoxically gets worse. Or you might get some cramps, like muscle tension, particularly in your legs, which can happen with things like magnesium deficiency. Or perhaps you've got really poor sleep quality despite good sleep habits, or you're sensitive to stress and easily overwhelmed. And now here's something about magnesium supplementation. Not all magnesium supplements are the same. Different forms of magnesium have dramatically different effects and absorption rates. And timing your magnesium intake is almost as important as the form you choose, as always. Let's translate everything we've learned into a practical system you can start using today. So remember the case with Rachel. She was the patient who came in after seeing 7 different doctors over a couple of years and had all those symptoms of fatigue despite having normal vitamin D levels. She was taking 2,000 IUs of vitamin D daily and getting plenty of sun with her weekend hikes, following a healthy diet, taking calcium for her bones. But looking through the lens of what you've learned today, you can probably spot the issues. First of all, she was missing the crucial morning timing window before her supplements and her sunlight. And then she also wasn't addressing her magnesium status, which turned out to be low. She was postmenopausal, which added that hormonal complexity to it. Also, she was getting uneven amounts of sun exposure. So lots of sun on the weekends, but almost none at all during the weekday. And then she also lacked that K2 vitamin supplement, which would properly direct the calcium. And she was dealing with some unrecognized thyroid antibodies that were affecting her vitamin D metabolism as well. So we implemented a protocol which got Rachel back to her own self. She had proper energy, she was climbing her stairs easily, and she felt like she had her life back. And her vitamin D levels rose to 52 nanograms per milliliter. It wasn't super dramatic, but it was in the optimal zone. And the way she was taking her vitamin D really transformed her life. So here's a step-by-step action plan to achieve similar results. Step 1. Get the right testing. Work with a doctor to establish your baseline. Make sure that you at least get standard testing. But if you're somebody who has struggled with vitamin D and mysterious fatigue effects, you might want to go beyond the standard. So 25 hydroxy vitamin D is the standard test, but you may also need vitamin D binding protein, a complete thyroid panel, including TPO antibodies, thyroid antibodies, essentially, and RBC magnesium levels, not just the serum levels, which remember, that's not enough to detect your body supply, and serum calcium. There are direct to consumer options if your doctor won't order these. A lot of times it's not because your doctor doesn't want to give you what you need, it's because they're not familiar with these types of tests. And unfortunately, doctors don't have a lot of time in the middle of the day to figure out these details. Step 2 is to time your light exposure. Remember all of our timing discussion. Here's your daily light exposure protocol. So in the morning, within 2 hours of waking, you want to get 10 to 15 minutes of direct sunlight, or at least use one of those sun lamps that are safe for your eyes. In the midday, around 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for most people, get more sun exposure, 5 to 10 minutes. You want to avoid excessive sun exposure. If you happen to live in one of those places that has tons of sun in the evening, you might want to avoid that so that your body can settle down. And if you can't get the natural sunlight, you want to use a 10,000 lux light therapy lamp for 20 to 30 minutes in the morning. And step 3, you'll want to optimize your supplement stack. Here is a suggested supplement timing protocol. And again, as with all things, you want to work with your health professional on this. In the morning with breakfast, preferably to help with the absorption, you'll want to take vitamin D3, and your dose is going to be based on your testing results. But typically it's between 2,000 to 5,000 IUs for most people. Then you want to make sure that you get vitamin K2, which is best in the MK7 form, 100 to 200 micrograms. So there's some debate about whether to take the K2 in the morning with the D3 because they do compete a little bit with each other, but it's a small enough dose that for most people, I think the convenience of taking it together is just fine. If you really want, you can move the K2 to lunch. So speaking of which, with lunch, you want to make sure that you're getting your other medications, your magnesium, for example, as well. In the middle of the day, magnesium citrate typically works for most people. You can take magnesium malate too, which can be helpful for your muscles. I have another episode all about the different forms of magnesium. And in the evening, you might want to take additional magnesium. If you struggle with sleep, magnesium bisglycinate or glycinate could be helpful. So with magnesium, 150 to 200 milligrams is the usual dose, give or take. Your body will regulate it pretty well. And if you're taking really high vitamin D doses and you're particularly worried about your bones, you may want to take additional K2 at this point. Most people won't need this extra K2, however. And step 4, support your hormones. This is a crucial but often missed step. You'll want to support your hormone balance by following the timing protocol above, getting adequate protein with breakfast to help stabilize your cortisol, taking breaks from screens every 90 minutes to help normalize your cortisol patterns. Don't do what I'm forced to do sometimes, which is back to back to back meetings for the entire day. And use stress management techniques during your peak cortisol hours. That's usually actually in the early morning, which for a lot of people, it's helpful because you want to be able to get up in the morning, get going. But for some people, it could be overly anxious. And if that's you, you'll want to practice meditation, breathing techniques to help manage that extra stress. And then, of course, step 5, monitor and adjust. Here's where most protocols fail. They don't adapt. There's not a one-size-fits-all protocol for everyone, and not even for the same person, as we discussed, for every part of the year. Create a simple tracking system. Keep a symptom diary, especially as you're adjusting doses, and retest your levels every 2 to 3 months initially. And track your energy levels throughout the day. And note any changes in your sleep quality, monitor your muscle tension, your mood. These are all things that are typically linked to vitamin D levels and metabolism.
Smooth moderated